at approximately right after him, or right at about 11:30, we had the Lieutenant Governor coming on. Now, the Lieutenant Governor has said that he wants to talk about 15 minutes. The information I've got from the be a little bit less, but shouldn't be more. And then he's going to have 15 minutes of Q&A. I've gotten 12 written questions from folks that I'm going to ask them, because I'm going to have to do it by telephone as well. And that way I can these are short, pretty much short, straight to the point. I got about 6 of them that are just that the person that wrote them just wants a yes or no answer on. So I'm hoping that he doesn't do like Lisa Murkowski does, that filibusters the heck out of an answer. So hopefully we can get these 12 questions in and answered. Will they be to your satisfaction? That's only for you to decide on how that's going. So that's what we're going to do from there. And then from after him, we got Rick, who's going to be speaking about the Alaskan energy. And what he's going to talk about is what happens to our state energy-wise if, God forbid, Biden gets into the Oval Office. And we're not trying to be Debbie Downers on it.
Yeah, let's caveat this, right?
But what we're looking at is forewarned is forearmed. So if you know what's going on, what you can expect, then when we're armed up, ready to go, and start looking at how we're going to fight back. What are we going to do? I was talking to Senator Hughes last night, and there was during the course of the conversation, one of the kind of interesting comments that I came up with, that was kind of a caveat from what she had said, is that there is a possible good thing that could happen to that. And that is, as the jobs go away, all the Californians that moved here looking for a free PFD and great paying jobs will leave. And real Alaskans will stay. Am I being cynical? Yeah. Am I being hopeful? Yeah. Could it happen? Well, it might. It has happened before. The leeches have left in the past when we've had, it used to be sourdough stood for sour on Alaska and no dough to get out. So, who knows? We'll wait and we'll see what happens. But that's what he's going to be talking about. I've got we got about 6 minutes before the governor calls in. So everybody here voted. How many here voted absentee? Anybody? Yeah, this might.
Hi, Mike. This is Diane. I was wondering if you would unmute yourself so we can see if we can hear you.
Okay.
And that way we'll know what we need to do for the audio.
Okay, hold on.
All right.
How about now? Do you hear me now?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit. Closer to your mic for us to hear you through the computer.
Yeah, can you hear us? I'm through with the PA system as well, so.
So let me, I'm going to mute my phone, and then that way I can rely just strictly on the computer.
Okay.
Just a second. All right, Mike, do you want to talk into the computer?
1, 2, 3. You hear me? You hear me at all? 1, 2, 3.
Mike, do you have a chair near the computer where you can bring your voice down to the computer itself?
I'm standing right on top of the computer right now. We'll just have to do telephone. What does that mean?
Basically, I don't have very good audio through the computer, so I think we're going to have to rely on cell phone.
Yeah. Come back on cell phone now.
So Mike, since the governor is going to call your cell phone, we're going to hang up now so that that phone is available for him to dial into.
Okay.
And then you just give us some signals in the video to tell us when it's our turn to call in on the video.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you. But leave the computer unmuted so we might have a chance to hear how it's going.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Carol, are you here yet? Still haven't seen her. Carol, you want to do a quick treasury report before the governor calls in? And Tom, if we could get a good head count for today too. So while Carol's getting set, what I was going to say was, so we had how many hands came up as far as absentee ballot? Anybody do absentee ballot at all? Cool. Okay.
Sign the clipboard.
Sign the clipboard if you come in. How many people are disgruntled? How many people have lost hope? We're Alaskans.
Close.
Cool.
Say something about the absentee thing.
Yeah, just here a second. I got. I'm gonna.
Okay, I'll get this over with quickly. Last month, we made a donation to Must Read of $100, and we received at the November meeting $163 in donations. Thank you very much. We appreciate every dollar that you give to help us. So we have a balance of $807.56.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Carol.
My husband and I voted absentee in the past, and he died 2.5 years ago. My husband and I have voted absentee in the past, and he passed away 2.5 years ago. And for the primary election, I got the ballots for him and myself, and I voted in person. And then we got, again, for the general election, for the absentee ballots, and I'd gone to our local Republican Party office and said, my husband passed away 2.5 years ago. Why are you sending me absentee ballot forms when he's no longer with us? Why has his name not been cleared off of the voting rolls? Can anybody answer me? I don't know.
That's
And
a
then they
good
turned-
question for Kevin, because he's supposed to keep the seal and manage the elections. What are you doing besides trying to sell gas to China?
And this came after I'd been down to the Republican office.
I am going to try. I'll try to get that question in. I don't have time to get, but I will definitely try to get that question in. Yes, sir.
So, first time here, and I'm not sure what the process is to get questions answered. Honestly, wasn't sure how this whole deal was going to go, or what the questioning would be to the governor. How would somebody get a question in to ask?
Right now, I've got 12, 13 now, and with the time frame we got, probably only in yet. If we still have some time, as long as it's a straight question, we'll do it from there. If it's a long commentary, probably not.
Yeah, and for future reference, would it just be bringing it to you or to a
Yes,
specific?
usually that's the way I try to work that.
there?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, are you allowed 13 questions?
I just got, I don't know how long or a time frame we're going to have with the Lieutenant Governor on that.
If somebody has 6 in, shouldn't you just count that as one? I mean,
Yeah, I know. Because a lot of this stuff is yes and no. So if I got time to get more questions in, I will. I just don't know the time. I'm just looking at time frame, the time frame we have with him.
Hopefully one of your questions addresses this lady's about the election, because that's a big one.
That's a question I have already. I already had that. I had that on the list. Okay.
Still on the list.
Yeah, Alaska's one of the 100+%.
So I think the bottom line on this, guys, is do we trust this election?
No way. No.
I think if you look in the lower 48, so that question is answered the same way. Loud and proud, not no, but hell no.
Like, how about ballot measure 2? That thing went from
Ballot measure 2. Okay, the latest I've heard on this is not official, but this is from one of the guys that was down there in Juneau that was doing the count. The damn thing still passed. So now we have to wait 2 years to get rid of it. Yeah.
If you look at the scatter graph, there's a professor out of MIT that looked at the 3 counties in Michigan and for 2 others. And they all broke at the same time. They keep graphs we do. And when that's when the vote switching started. And they all broke at the same time, and they all went the same way. They followed the exact same pattern that Prop 2 followed. I think the reason they weren't able to overturn Sullivan and Don Young, the votes for them were overwhelming. But if you look at the way they came in, who is the wizard of smart that said all absentees and other votes coming in are going to go liberal or left? Who set up that narrative?
I agree.
I don't buy it.
I'm looking. I mean, you're pointing like let's say Sponholz. Look at Tuck. Look at Ortez. Look at. I mean, the only one that I was happy to see was winning, but I didn't know if she could sustain it was on Bill Wielkowski, because she was only ahead by 212 votes, and I kind of figured with the absentees still coming in, Democrats, that she wouldn't do it, but. When you look at the other ones, they spiked like crazy with the absentees.
Well, the point is, they put numbers I have heard like $35 million left on votes. $15 billion. Now take your calculator out and divide 750,000 into that and figure out how much they're spending on these. Now, the whole. Well, I've heard it's $4.5 million, $4.7 million we spent on the Dominion system to buy it from the state of Alaska. 10% of what they spent on gross is chump change. To overturn.
Hello, this is Mike. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
You got, I got probably about 40, 50 people here wanting to hear from you.
Awesome.
So you've got the floor, Governor.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity to speak to all of you. There's just so many things going on in this world right now. It's hard to keep track. I mean, we've got a whole host of issues going. Of course, we've got the pandemic and the economic fallout. We've had the unprecedented flooding and landslides in southeast Alaska, in which we had to declare that section of the state an emergency, a state emergency. We've got the ongoing issues with the voting nationally that's still being worked through. And what I wanted to focus on to let the folks there know is we're expecting our first shipment of vaccines next week. And we're anticipating about 61,000, almost 62,000 units to be able to start administering to folks who want them. And the first recipients of the vaccines, again, this is all voluntary, there's no mandatory taking of vaccines, is frontline healthcare workers, then long-term care residents, such as at our senior centers, and staff, emergency responders, nurses in remote communities, and then people giving vaccines, of course. And then in a couple months, the vaccine, we're going to have enough vaccines that will be available to all that want it. And so the light is here at the end of the tunnel that we can see it now. In other words, the next month is going to be tough. But as these vaccines start to ramp up and more people decide to get them, it's going to have the effect of making a whole host of Alaskans immune, especially Alaskans that are vulnerable to this virus. Our seniors, those with underlying health conditions, and those are the folks that we're targeting first with the healthcare responders, again, for those that wish to have a vaccination. The other thing that's happening is we currently have in the state what they refer to as monoclonal antibody treatments. What that is that's the same treatment that President Trump got and others. And what that is if you're one of the individuals that falls in the category, for example, of maybe being a senior or having underlying health issues, if you test positive, you're not starting to feel well, instead of going into the hospital, what would happen is at the airline center, the Alaskan Airline Center, for example, you can go in there and get the treatment. It's an intravenous treatment. And what it does is the drug deals with the virus once you're infected. And the outcomes of this therapy are pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. So with the vaccinations coming our way and ramping up, and with the monoclonal antibody infusion treatment, we should start to see here the next month or so, 2 months at the latest, not just a flattening out of the case numbers, but we should start to see a gradual decline. And the hope is that by late spring, early summer, enough people have gotten the vaccination, and really you need about 60% of the population to want to get a vaccination to cause what they refer to as herd immunity. And this is the same type of immunity that all the other vaccinations, whether it's chickenpox, whether it's for the flu, the attempt is to get enough folks to be immune that it makes it difficult for this virus to jump from one person to the next. So really the bottom line is there's good news. We're looking at things getting better here after the next month or so. And it's our hope that when we hit early summer, we're as pretty close to normal as we once were. We can get our economy up and running. We can get the tourism industry back. We can put people back to work. And the hope is that we can look at this whole tough, difficult year, especially for folks listening to me speak now. Many of you, as you know, I don't have to tell you, have had it rough in terms of being able to visit relatives and travel, etc. But these two issues of vaccinations and the new therapies are really going to make a huge difference here in the state of Alaska. So I just want to leave you with that message specifically. Our hospitalization numbers continue to hold. We're getting more people infected, and there are some going to the hospitals, but we still have hospital capacity. So that's holding. Our death rates are still the second lowest in the country. Our death numbers are the second lowest in the country. So Alaska's holding up. Alaska's hanging in there. But again, we want to to get these vaccinations going for those that want them, so that we can get some herd immunity going. And once we do that, we think everything is going to be looking a lot better. So, Mike, that's the main report I wanted to give today to the folks listening.
Governor, can I get a clarification on what you just said?
Yes.
President Trump had said as soon as this vaccine was approved by the FDA that it was going to be out to the states in 24 hours, and you're saying a week. Why are we second fiddle to New York and California and the liberal states in the lower 48, or are we Americans as well? What's going on with that?
No. We're Americans as well. President Trump said it's going to be out the door, but once it gets out the door, it's got to be packaged. It's got to be put on planes. It's got to be delivered to hubs. It's got to be broken down. This takes a couple days. So the states, all the states are in the same boat. It's heading our way. It's going to be here shortly. It's going to be broken down, packaged, and then it's going to be sent out, gets to the hospitals, gets ready to be administered. That can't happen in one day for anybody, for any state.
And then the second aspect is if you heard anything about veterans at the VA. I've not been able to get a good answer out of the VA, and I know the Echo vaccine has said that you guys are working with the feds, but nobody's telling me about veterans.
So that's a very good question, Mike. I'll tell you what. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to put you on hold, and I'll try and get an answer. Will that work for you? Give me a minute, 1 minute.
That works.
Okay, hang on.
Didn't know if I was going to get asked a question. Yes, ma'am.
It not being mandatory, does that mean that he will allow employees to be able, or employers that are going to require it? Does that make it mandatory? Because
The question is that since the state is not going to be mandating the vaccine, what about employers mandating? Which I kind of got a sneaking hunch and know what the answer is going to be. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, but I've just kind of got an idea and know what the answer is going to be.
It's so damn inconvenient that everybody's going to have to do it, whether it's mandated or not. You can't cash a check, you can't cross the border, you can't fly a plane.
Well, they're not going to.
Yes.
I have not heard about we're going to have papers under Biden or under Biden. God only knows. But yeah, he'll be interested in seeing what I'll ask him that.
Hey, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Mike, I could not get through, but I'm going to get an answer to your question, and I'll have Health and Social Services Commissioner Adam Crum give you a call. Okay?
And then while we're waiting, if you would take one more question, sir.
Sure.
From a mandate standpoint, yes, we understand that you and the state of Alaska are not going to be mandating. What about people that are working and have an employer that says either you take it or you lose your job?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's another one I'm going to have to take a look at. I know, for example, let's say a cruise ship coming to Alaska says if you want to be a passenger, if you want to be at work, you have to take the vaccination. That might happen. But I don't, let's look into that. Let me look at that, Mike, and what I can do is we'll get back to you, and then you can update the folks there in the audience.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take a couple days, probably Monday, but I'll make sure that we get those 2 questions answered and get back to you.
I appreciate it. And anything else you want to close with?
It's been a rough year, but things are looking better. I am so proud of Alaskans. I'm so proud of the people in that room, the folks in that room that helped build this great state. They've been through a lot. We want to do all we can to make sure we get this thing behind it so we can get back to living the lives that we all are used to. So just hang in there, folks. I want to wish you all a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas, and we'll get some answers to these 2 questions here ASAP.
Thank you, Governor. Thanks for coming on, and I do look forward to having you here in person one day very soon.
Yep, I do too, Mike. Thank you, and thanks to everybody in the room.
And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and yours.
Thanks.
Bye. I will get, when I get the answer from the governor, if you've all signed, are you a member of our chapter yet? Okay, if you signed on the sheet with your email address, what I'll do is when I get that answer, it's going to go to Tom, and Tom's going to send it out to everybody that's.
One thing is extremely important about individual rights and.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mike, there are a lot of us, like myself and my wife, who already had. Now, we're hearing all kinds of different answers of how long that immunity lasts. But I understand there are 5 people nationally, at least that was according to Rand Paul the other day, who've actually gotten it the second time. That's not even a statistical blip. So we're immune. We don't know for how long, but it's for quite a while. We don't even know how that ranks up with immunity from the vaccine, because we don't know how long that immunity lasts. You know, it's just now hit the streets. Are they going to consider those numbers in the herd immunity? And are they going to consider us, for example, as being immune and on the distribution? We don't need the vaccine, at least not now.
Right. This question was brought up at the vaccine echo.
Mike, are you there?
Yep, we're here. Okay. So.
Mike, this is Diane.
Go ahead.
I don't think she saw you now.
Mike, I think you've given us the clue, so I'm going to hang up now and the Lieutenant Governor will call you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. So Mike, thank you so much for inviting Lieutenant Governor Meyer to speak to your group today. We really appreciate that. We are going to have to use your cell phone for the audio because we cannot hear you through the computer.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay through the computer?
Yes, we can hear you through. We can hear you through the computer.
Okay, great. Oh, the only way I'm going to hear you is through my phone, so hopefully we won't get any feedback here. Okay, are you ready for me, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me this morning, and I want to thank the AMAC members for coming out this morning and your interest in the elections and the election process. It was a very unusual year for everything, especially for elections. And I was being lobbied very heavily last April and May when the virus was first coming out that the only way we can do the elections is to do a vote by mail. And of course, the folks that were lobbying me for this were folks from Anchorage who kept telling me, look, vote by mail works. Look how well it works in Anchorage. And then I'm thinking, I'm looking at my assembly, I'm looking at my mayor here. But I'm not so sure vote by mail is such a good thing. And so we were determined to do elections as normal in a very abnormal year. And what that meant, though, was that we were going to have to recruit a whole bunch of new workers to work at the poll sites because our normal workers that help us every year at the poll sites are folks that are retired over 65 and want to help. And this year, a lot of those folks, and I understand completely, didn't want to participate, didn't want to spend 15 hours at the polling site and run the risk of getting a virus, even though we felt like we could do it safely, have the mask, have the PPE and all that. But anyway, we had to recruit a lot of new people. And we like to have 4 or 5 people at each poll site. And when you got 441 different things, different poll sites, you can imagine the thousands of people we have to hire. So we had to get creative this year, and I was very lucky in the sense that I was able to go to some of the churches were actually meeting in person, which helped. And the pastor got up on the pulpit and encouraged his congregation to help their community, help their state, and to work at the election sites. And so we got hundreds of people from the churches who signed up to help us. A lot of the nonprofits, Kiwanis, Rotary clubs, etc. they did what we call adopt a precinct, where they said we're going to run that precinct and we want all the money to go to whatever charity. So that worked pretty well for us. And then finally, the Governor Dunleavy and Commissioner Shabaka agreed to let state employees help if they wanted to, of course, all voluntary. But at least they wouldn't have to take a day off to do that. And so we got a lot of state employees. In fact, we ended up with a surplus of workers, which nobody thought we were going to be able to do in the urban areas. Now, the rural areas, that was a little more of a challenge, and I'll talk about that more as we go on here. But we also wanted to encourage people who weren't comfortable getting out of the house and being around people to vote to vote absentee and to request an absentee ballot be sent to them, which, there's a big difference between us sending you a ballot, an absentee ballot, versus like Anchorage does, where everybody just gets a ballot if you're a registered voter. To me, that's risking fraud, and I didn't want to go that way. But if somebody wants to request an absentee ballot, we're more than happy to send it to them. And we made it easy by just going online and requesting it. But people like me that are over 60, we're not as technology savvy, or I'm not anyway. And so we thought, well, let's just send everybody over age 65 a absentee ballot application. And so we did that, and then we also expanded our early voting. And again, what we wanted to do is to try to keep the crowds down at the actual polling sites on election day, and we were successful. You just didn't see the long lines outside the door, even with the social distancing on election day. And as far as I know, nobody got sick. Nobody got the nasty virus, either working there or coming out in person and voting. So it was a challenging year, not only to get workers, but also we had two initiatives, and both initiatives we rejected initially, we, the state of Alaska. And the first one was the oil tax, and the reason why we rejected that is we wanted to rewrite it so it made more sense. It was the way it was written, it was very complicated, complex, and we didn't think people would understand. The sponsor of that initiative took it to court, and we lost. And then the second one was the Better Elections, ballot number 2, which we thought we would certainly win that, because the initiatives are supposed to be single subject, so that when you go vote for that initiative, you're voting for one subject. Well, clearly there was 3 different subjects there. There was getting rid of the primary system as we know it, going to a ranked choice voting in the general, which is totally different, and then this dark money section. And I know a lot of people voted for it because they don't like dark money, but perhaps they didn't like the primary, getting rid of the primary and getting rid of the general, but they had to vote for all of it just to get part of it. So that's why it clearly, in our mind, violated the single subject rule. But the court said no. It said that it all fits under the subject of elections, and so it does meet the single subject rule. I do think there's some groups that are still pursuing legal action against that, but we had to do what the courts instructed us to do. Also, people were suing us over how we were going to do the elections. For example, before I get into that, the Resource Development Council, this one was interesting. They sued us because we had approved the oil tax, even though we didn't, but the judge said we had to. But they sued us because they had proof that folks outside of Alaska were collecting signatures and were getting paid more than what the statute says you can get paid. Statute is clear that you can only get paid up to $1 a signature. And they had proof that these people were getting paid a lot more than that. And the courts said that, yes, that is true, that is illegal, that's against statute, but the statute itself is unconstitutional. People should be able to pay whatever they want to. So they lost that one, which I thought they actually were going to win, even though they were suing me. Then another one was the Disability Law Center. This one was they were suing me because they when they heard that we were sending out absentee ballot applications to those over 65, they felt like we should be sending it out to everyone. Fortunately, we did win on that one. The other one was Elise Galvin was suing us over how we had her on the ballot. And the normal process is that if you run through the Democrat or Republican primary, then you would then become the Democrat or Republican nominee. And she insisted that her and Alpros, that they were independents and weren't Democrats, even though they ran through the Democrat primary election. And it's always been this way. It was changed the last 4 years under the Walker-Malott regime, because I feel because they kind of like that independent label and didn't want to show, you know, that they were either a D or an R. So we were just going back the way it was, and fortunately for us, the courts agreed with us on that one. And then there was another one by the Alaska Center of Education that just said that if someone doesn't fill out their absentee ballot correctly, that we have to contact them and give them a chance to cure it or to fix it. And that one would have really set us back, because you can imagine the number of absentee ballots we had this year, and if somebody did fill it out incorrectly, it would have taken us quite a long time to track them down and then get them to fix it. Fortunately, the courts agreed with us on that. Then there's the Arctic Village sued me over this, saying that some of their members were hunkered down and they couldn't get a witness to sign their absentee ballots because of COVID, I guess, and the judge agreed. Even though, again, state law says very clearly that you do have to have a signature witness on all absentee ballots, but the judge said that regardless of the state law, that he was going to say that wasn't necessary, at least for this election. So again, we have to do what the Supreme Court in the state of Alaska tells us to. We didn't agree with that, but we had to enforce what they said. So the biggest challenge, I think, though, was just getting help in the rural areas. I know in talking to some of the tribal village leaders or some of the mayors, like at Sleep News, Cheeveck, Point Clark, etc. You know, they were in a hunker down mode. Everybody was ordered to stay put, and the leaders had told me that they're not going to have elections this year. And I said, well, sir, you can't make that call. Everyone has the right to elections. Everyone has the right to vote. Frankly, if you're not going to allow us to either recruit some local people there or to fly some folks in, then National Guard is ready and prepared to land a plane on the state-owned runway. We'll set up a tent with a big sign that says "Vote here," because we have to make sure everybody has the ability to vote if they want. So, and usually when I said something like that, then they'd come around and say, "Okay, fine, I'll have my clerk or my wife open up at the village town center, and we'll have elections." And I said, well, that's fine as long as we have a chance to train them so they are doing it correctly. And so we were able to do that. But then we have to get all this material back from these places, because we have to find out who voted in person so that we make sure if they also voted absentee that their vote doesn't count twice. And 85 people did actually try to vote twice. So I haven't heard exactly how many voted twice or tried to vote twice in the general. But my guess is probably a couple hundred. And normally when we see that happen, we turn that over to the AG so that he can investigate whether or not somebody was purposely trying to commit fraud. As you know, we did catch this in 2018, and unfortunately that case has not gone to court yet. But you know, prior to Gail Fanumii, who's our election director, and myself coming in, I'm afraid some duplicate votes were counted. And again, I think that was simply because they were trying to rush the results, which everybody wants the results fast and quick. My goal was, though, to get them accurate, even if it does require us to be a little bit slower. And the fact that we had a record year of number of absentee ballots to count, 140,000 to be exact, which was about 39% of the total. And then we had almost, and then when you throw in the early vote, 53% of the people voted either early or absentee. So more people voted early or absentee than actually voted on election day. And so that's why on election night, when some folks were winning, if it was close, a lot of elections changed once the absentees started to get counted. Because on election night, we only had 50% of the vote. So again, that's why it took so long. And what have I learned from this? This being my first election that I've actually not been a candidate, but actually helped administer the elections. We are going to do some things differently, but what I noticed is the election and election process follows state statute very closely. So if you saw some problems or issues with the election process, then let me know or let your representative or senator know, so we can make that change in state law. One thing that I found in particular was that the initiative, and folks, we have to be very careful with these initiatives. When people stick a clipboard in front of us and say sign here, because the initiative that passed in 2014, which said that if you get a PFD, then you're automatically registered to vote. Well, it's just everybody gets a PFD. So we have so many people registered to vote who have no desire to vote. So we have more people, and then when these people move out of state, they don't tell us. So we have more people on our voter registration list than actually are eligible that live in our state. But keep in mind, again, state law says that if you live out of state and have a desire to come back, we have to keep you on the voter registration list. So, sometimes our kids go out to college and live in Colorado or live somewhere else. But yes, they can still vote if their intent is to come back. And frankly, just a lot of people moved out of state the last 4 years and didn't tell us that they were moving. And so by federal law, we have to keep them on as a voter for at least 4 years. And then if they haven't voted, we can contact them to see if they still want to participate. So that's why you see more people registered to vote than actually live here. And I know it's kind of embarrassing because I think it really stands out in Alaska, just because almost everybody is registered to vote here. But again, we had a great turnout, a little over 60%, which is comparable though to other states. And with it being a presidential year, you do have, of course, more people participating. But I think, considering the obstacles and that we had a virus that no one really understood, and still doesn't really understand, I think by all means it was a successful election. There was a lot of misinformation out there. One of them being, how can all these people be on the voter registration list when not that many people live here? And again, with the recession that we've had in the last 4 years, a lot of people have moved and they just don't tell us when they moved. And then the other misinformation was the Dominion voting machines that we have, and these are machines that we've had since 1998. Back then, when they were purchased, they were actually called Diebold, and then Dominion took over Diebold sometime in early 2000. So we've had the machines since 1998, and then when I got in office in 2018 and realized how old these machines were and some mistakes that they were making, we said we got to get new vote tabulation machines. And so we put it out to bid. We went through the normal state procurement process, had 3 bidders. We had a committee to interview all of them. I wasn't part of that committee, but we were, again, Dominion was the low bidder. They seemed to be most qualified. And we were very familiar with their product, their service, because we have been using it for so long. And the fact that almost 30 other states use Dominion, we felt very comfortable in buying our new machines from them. And again, these machines, even though they were new this year, were tested pretty well in the primary election. We did 3 recounts after the primary. They matched the machine. And what people don't understand too is that even in state law, after the general election, we are required to, the review board, which is made up of Alaskans, equal amount of Democrat, Republican, Independents. And what they do is they hand count 1 precinct in every district. And the precinct is chosen randomly, but it has to have at least 5% of the total vote for that district. So you can't just take a precinct that hardly anybody voted in. And you hand count 1 precinct in every district, and then you see how that compares or that matches with what the Dominion tabulation machine says. And they all matched perfectly in the primary. We did that again in the general. They all matched exactly. And then this year, I did something that I don't believe any lieutenant governor's ever requested before, and that is to have a statewide hand count of a ballot measure. And so I chose ballot measure 2 because that was fairly close. And again, we just finished that count on Friday, and again, it didn't match 100%, but it was like within a handful of votes. Certainly not the 2,000 or 3,000 that initiative passed by. So again, I feel good about the election. I feel that it was done fair, honestly, and with integrity. I think that elections in general, especially here, if you lived in Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and unfortunately they had Dominion machines there as well. So I think Dominion maybe got a bad name because of those swing states that people were expecting them maybe to go a different direction than they did. But again, they've all been, I haven't followed the other states so much, but I feel good about our election here. Again, I don't know that there was any surprises. I know that Representative Pruitt, his race is close, and he only lost by 11 votes, but that was expected to be close. Representative Gillis, who represents my district, District 25, he had a really tough opponent this year, and this district has always been kind of purple, so that wasn't unexpected. And frankly, ballot measure 2, if you talk to anyone who was doing polling or was watching that, was expected to be close too. So really no surprises here in Alaska, and I don't. There's no reason in my mind to suspect or think that our elections weren't accurate and fair. And like I said, we tested the machines. We test the Dominion machines before we send them out. We run about a couple dozen ballots through them just to make sure they're all being counted correctly. And then we test them when we get them back. They are kept under lock and key, video camera, all that. So nobody can tamper with them. And they're sealed up before they get deployed out to the various areas. Again, Mike, I think it was a good election, and I want to thank. I know a lot of your folks there helped with the elections, and I appreciate the help that they gave, and certainly just appreciate you coming out and voting. So I'm open for any questions that your folks may have, Mike.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I've got 13, and I just picked up another 2, and I know we only have kind of a limited time. You hear me? You're hearing me good?
I am, yes.
Okay. The first question, and this was asked just a little bit ago. I've got a lady here.
Can you use the microphone?
Okay, I'm sorry. I've got a lady here that her husband passed away 2 years ago, and she got not 1 but 2 absentee ballots for her husband for the primary and for the general, even though she went there to the Division of Elections to get her husband off that list. So she's got a real problem with that.
Yeah, no, and thank you. And if I can get that person's name, we'll rectify that. I mean, we get our information from the Bureau of Statistics, and sometimes they don't get us and give us all the information, and so we rely on people to tell us. And if this person told us and we didn't change it, I apologize for that. But again, it is very much a people business that we have here with elections, and they get busy, and it probably meant to correct it and didn't get it corrected. But we'll get it corrected now because we have plenty of time to do that.
Okay, great.
This type of thing is how we end up with
Yeah,
bad elections.
get with me. Okay, first, the other question is SB 242, which was the China virus legislation that went through the legislature. Amendment number 2 by Senator Tom Begich was to not have witness signatures in an absentee ballot. Section 3 of the state constitution says election contests, methods of voting, including absentee voting, shall be prescribed by law. So shall be prescribed by law, that is the legislature, period. So why didn't you send an appeal to the federal courts against the state court justice not fully ruling on the full court, which violated Section 3 above, and if not, just plain ignored the ruling as an opinion and not a law by the legislature?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Elections is pretty much run by state law, and if the courts or the judges are going to say you don't have to follow state law, then I don't know what we can do. The governor and I discussed this. We both wanted to go ahead and spend the money and fight this all the way up at the Supreme Court. But our Department of Law had indicated to us, since this was brought through state court, that the federal court would not hear it, and certainly wouldn't be able to hear it before. We didn't pursue it. I do think that the state of Texas just recently tried to deal with this issue, because this issue came up apparently in 4 other states as well, and the Supreme Court didn't hear it. So that's why we just kind of said, okay, I guess we're just going to have to accept this and do what the courts tell us to do. We didn't like doing that, believe me.
I got Senator Hughes here who wants to do a follow-up.
Yeah, and good morning to you, Lieutenant Governor. Thanks for being here. I heard part of your presentation on the SEC meeting. And just before I do the follow-up related to that, you'll see I have a mask around my neck. I know a lot of information about masks and the fact that they may not work, but I did have COVID. It was not a good experience, and because I'm pro-life, from the little babies in the womb all the way to mature Alaskans, I want to be a team player, so I just wanted to let you know that. But because I have COVID, I have a natural immunity, and I cannot actually be a carrier, so if I'm not wearing it, you're fine around me. So as follow-up, first of all, the bill number was SB 241, not 242. I had the conversation with Mr. Coons, and the amendment was Amendment 7 on March 24th. So it was in the environment of COVID that we considered it, which is really significant. So we actually thought about it, and I actually stood up on the Senate floor and said it would crack open the door to fraud, something to that effect. So it really burns me that Judge Crosby ignored that and legislated from the bench. So that's a side note. We need judicial reform. But as a follow-up question, Lieutenant Governor Meyer, he used to be my colleague in the Senate, there were, I believe you said, 140,000 absentee ballots. Of those 140,000 ballots, how many of them had signatures that were not witnessed? And are those ballots being examined to make sure they're all legit and there wasn't any fraudulent activity? Because ballot measure 2 only lost, I think, by 3,800 votes. So I'm just wondering, could there be some unwitnessed absentee ballots equaling that number that could have tipped that ballot measure?
Yes, to answer your question, I'm sure there were some. I don't know that there's enough to change the outcome of that ballot. I did ask what our normal rejection rate is of absentee ballots, and it's normally about 3% get rejected because either people didn't sign it, didn't put a personal identifier, or didn't have a witness. And this election, we only rejected about 0.8, so less than 1%. So what that tells me is that a lot of absentee ballots that in the past would have probably been rejected this year were accepted. But even if you say 2%, I'm not sure that would have changed the outcome of ballot number 2. And so I don't know that would have made any difference or not. Senator Hughes.
Okay, Lieutenant Governor, I got another question for you. I sincerely believe Prop 2 did not pass without underhanded help from mail-in ballots. Has this been seriously looked into yet? And you've kind of touched on this. Military and absentee voting are perfectly acceptable, but Alaska needs to abolish mail-in ballots. We also need IDs always.
Yeah, well, and again, I would encourage people to be very careful of the mail-in voting. As I mentioned, Anchorage has done it now for 4 years, and they seem to really like it. And they're trying. There's a group of people trying now to spread this statewide. And I can assure you that as long as I'm Lieutenant Governor and Governor Dunleavy are in office, that if someone tries to pass a bill, which I don't think the legislature would do, we would veto that, because we don't want mail-in voting. In fact, one of my pieces of legislation is to get rid of the automatic register to vote if you get a PFD, because that means everybody is registered to vote in Alaska. And now if you can just give them all a ballot, and then even if they don't want to vote, you could persuade them to vote, and then pick up their ballot for them, which is called ballot harvesting, and drop it off. So no, I think vote by mail is ripe for fraud, and that's not something I support. But certainly I think we do have to give people who want to vote an ability to vote, the capability of voting via an absentee ballot. Again, as long as it's properly witnessed, and as you said, you have a identification.
Okay, next question, sir, is not sure how the hand count works, but if they're counting mail-in ballots that aren't legal, what good is that?
Yeah, well, again, we have to assume they're legal when they go through our highest court, our Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says you have to accept these even without a witness signature. We don't have any choice, unfortunately.
Okay, these next ones are yes and no. We can just keep it at that so we can keep moving on. Were you the ultimate decision maker as to purchasing and using Dominion voting systems, yes or no?
Well, I'm sorry, who the Dominion system, yes or no? What was the first part?
Were you the ultimate decision makers as to purchasing the Dominion system?
Well, no, it went through the state procurement process, and again, it's a very rigid system that you get qualified bidders, and then you have a committee interview them, and then you test out their product, et cetera, and then that committee makes their recommendation, and then I don't know that I actually said yes or no to it. I mean, it was just the committee made their decision. It was pretty obvious that they were the most qualified, and so we went with. And again, having had Dominion for the last 20 years, I think it was a pretty easy decision.
Okay, but then prior to that decision, were you aware that the system and software was from Latin America, Venezuela, and introduced to produce preordained election results? Yes or no?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Prior to purchasing decision, were you aware that China had given Dominion $400 million on or about 13 October 2020? Yes or no?
No, I was not aware of that.
Prior to the purchasing decision, were you aware that Texas refused Dominion, much less 26 other states? Yes or no?
Well, I knew Texas was not satisfied with the product, and so they. I can't remember if they didn't choose them or got rid of them. One of the two. But like I said, we do know that most of the states, at least at the time, and I think still, do use Dominion.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't know there's 26 other states that don't use Dominion.
Yeah. What would the 100,000 people voter registration hacking? Are you doing or going to do an investigation into those people and the hackers voted by absentee and or in person, and that would that have serious impact on ballot 2 and races in several districts that are winning and then spike because of absentees?
I'm not sure I understand that question. Are they saying that the voter registration system, the 113,000 people who had their data exposed, is that what that question's about?
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, there is definitely some concern there that if people had someone's, if a bad actor had someone's personal information, could they request a absentee ballot and get that ballot and sign it and send it back in, which of course would be fraud because they signed somebody else's name. But in order to do that on a large scale basis, we would see that a whole bunch of absentee ballot applications are coming from one location. We would also see a lot of duplicate votes if for example, a bad actor had your personal information, Mike, requested an absentee ballot, got it, and then voted, and then you voted on say election day. Right away, that's a duplicate vote. We would see that, we would catch that, and we would investigate that. And again, we did have some duplicate voting, but not in a large amount.
As a follow-up on that, Lieutenant Governor, I was a poll watcher, and I remember there was only one case that I saw. But there was one gentleman that came up to vote in person, and he was told, "Oh, you already voted," and he said he didn't. So he was allowed to vote provisional. So was that is that being looked into as well in kind of lieu of that question?
Yeah, well, whenever somebody votes provisional or question, they are looked at very closely as to why. And again, I haven't heard that there is a larger amount of question ballots this year versus other years. At least certainly not enough to raise any suspicion or concern.
Okay. Will you confirm if a FOIA request is submitted for Dominion Systems, communications, and financial, will that be answered?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if there's any questions at all about the Dominion machines and how they were purchased and the purchasing process, again, that's all public information, public record, and we'll be happy to share that with whoever requests it.
Then will you appoint an independent task force to perform a forensic analysis to protect our elections in the future and determine what happened with this one? And most importantly, will the AG act on any criminal findings by the task force?
Well, yeah. If we have reason to believe that that our elections were not done fairly accurately, absolutely, we'll investigate that. But again, having done so many hand counts that we've done, and even going the extra step of doing a hand count on ballot number 2, and finding out that the hand count results match what the Dominion machines are telling us, I guess I just don't see any reason, as of right now anyway, to form this forensic committee. But if we find out that there is some evidence of mischief, then absolutely, we want to get rid of that.
Okay, so this kind of flows into that one. When are you going to return the Dominion machines, and can we get our money back? And you're getting a lot of laughter in the crowd on that one.
Yeah, again, I don't have reason yet to believe that we need to turn back the Dominion machines. I know there's been some talk about it at the national level, but even at the national level, no one has been able to prove yet that the machines are not working the way they should. And again, in Alaska, since we do hand count verification, we're not finding that either. So rather than waste the $4 million that the state spent on these machines, we got to have a good reason. And again, we've had these machines for over 20 years, and I know every election there is some concern when somebody's candidate doesn't win, but we have to have proof that before we can turn back or send back the machines.
So, Mike, this is Diane. I thank you so much. We are kind of running out of time. We're at about 40 minutes now, and probably one more question is all we have time for.
Okay.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Ask him how many of those 100,000 people data was done voted. Does he know that number?
Well, I've already asked him that.
No, you didn't ask him.
Okay. So the question is, say it again.
Of the 100,000 people that voted.
Of the 100,000 people that voted.
100,000 people that had their data stolen.
The 100,000 people that had data stolen.
How many of them voted?
How many voted?
Absentee.
Absentee. Do we know?
I don't think we know that, Mike. Of those 100,000 who had their data exposed, how many of them voted absentee? That we can do that research, but I don't know that off the top of my head. But again, if they tried to use that in a mischievous way, we would have caught that either through a duplicate vote or a lot of absentee ballots being requested to one PO box, for example.
Okay, I'll just close this with this, Lieutenant Governor. I've got a lot of people here that have zero faith in this election. Not only Alaska election, but nationally. There is really, really bad feelings about this. And anything that you can do to transparently show Alaskans that Dominion was not tied into the internet as it happened in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Nevada, and Arizona, and Alaska wasn't tied into that, and we need to know, are we the same as those states, and did this election get yanked out from underneath us? Because when you had the spikes that came out with Sponholz and Ortez and Tuck and those folks that we actually were winning by a large number, there's a lot of distrust right now, and we really need your help on alleviating that distrust. And I really do appreciate you being here today and answering our questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mike, let me just say again, you have to remember that only 50% of people voted on election day. Especially the Democrat Party really stressed voting absentee and don't risk getting the COVID virus. And so that's why so many of the absentee ballots, when they came in, leaned towards the left. Again, no surprise in either one of those elections. Ivy Sponholz was expected to win. Chris Tuck was expected to win. If let's say if Joe Biden had won Alaska, then I'd say, yeah, something looks fishy. But as I said in the conclusion of my talk, that there really wasn't any surprises in our election up here. But if somebody has evidence or proof that that something went afoul or went astray, and we want to know about it, because we want everyone's 100% trust in our election system and process. And we'll be happy to, if you want to make a public records request, we'll be happy to share everything that we have with the general public.
Can you
and like I said, if somebody has some proof or evidence, we want to know it, see it, and we'll pursue it if there is a criminal action to be taken.
Lieutenant Governor, can you take a wrap-up comment by Senator Hughes, please?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. There's intense interest. There's a lot of people in this room. I don't know what your camera is showing, but I was sure.
I couldn't hear the audible at all, so I'm wondering, are we wrapping it up?
I can hear it. It's Senator Hughes.
Yeah, when I pulled in and saw the cars in the parking lot, I'm thinking they're interested in what you have to say, Lieutenant Governor. But thank you that you're working on some legislation. And I'll let the cat out of the bag. My office is working on some legislation too, and so, if you have a particular idea or something that you think might be helpful, you can contact my Chief of Staff, Buddy Witt. But we're particularly looking at ballot harvesting to try to stop that. We also, because of the ballot measure too, the thing that infuriated me about that particular ballot measure is the millions that poured in from outside. It was actually run by people from outside, and I believe very much trying to get our federal delegation to move to the left, to help them as far as in the U.S. Senate and Congress over time. So one of the things that was infuriating was the dark money provision, and that's probably why most people voted for it, that got fooled. But you notice the dark money didn't impact ballot initiatives. So that's something that we're looking at too, to try to stop dark money with ballot initiatives, because when you have a red state like Alaska, about the only way that you can make changes to move things to the left is through the initiative process. And if millions can pour in, that's when it happens. And Alaska's a cheap date. We're a small population. We have a small media market. So this is about the cheapest place in the country if you want to influence the U.S. Senate and Congress. So we will be filing that legislation. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get it out there, but just be aware. And these bills have the opportunity for other fixes, so if we have other ideas, and of course, Lieutenant Governor sounds like they're going to have something too. So I just want to give you hope that we can make our system better. Thank you.
I've been asked real quick, because I know you want to shut down.
Well, can I comment on that one, Mike?
Okay.
Because I will be very supportive and will work with Senator Hughes and any other legislator who has some legislation pertaining to elections, because as I mentioned, we follow state statute very closely. And so I know a lot of frustration people have with elections. It's just us following the law, and we get sued so much we have to follow the law. I think the frustration, though, on my part, Mike, is that we followed the law, and then the courts just said ignore it. For example, ballot 2 clearly, and Senator Hughes brings this up, clearly had multiple subjects, and an initiative is only supposed to be one subject. But the courts ruled that it was all elections. And then the courts, and then the signature witness on the absentee ballots. Again, we follow the law, but then the courts said, no, we don't need that this year because of COVID. So that's if you were to ask me what's the biggest frustration with this election, was just that, the courts were kind of making up the rules for us. And we were just simply trying to follow state law.
And then lastly, Lieutenant Governor, I've been asked, see a raise of hands, how many people here trust the election
Can we go
for
to
2020?
closing remarks?
How many trust it? I have 0 hands coming up out of 41 people. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate it. It's you. As I told Diana, you were coming into a hornet's nest, because there's a lot of bad feelings about this election. It's not at you, it's at the system. and all the stuff that we're getting that's flat out lies, and the news media, the Communist News Network, the MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, NPR, and sadly Fox News. We don't trust. The level of trust in this nation and in Alaska it needs a lot of work. And thank you again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
So follow-ups on that. How does the legislative branch? That's just
like once you do that, I'm just gonna plug this as okay.
How do I?
You're out.
I'm out.
You're out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So anybody need a bathroom break before we go into Rick? You want to take a 5-minute break? We'll have Rick then speak as well. Shake your heads, kind of cool down, take a few deep breaths.
Hey, Mike.
I'm probably going to hang out.
Okay, 5-minute break, my fellow Alaskans. Don't forget to like and share this video. Lots of information unpacked about our elections out there. Definitely worth sharing. Alaskans need to hear the truth from our Lieutenant Governor and Governor of Alaska. Hope you're enjoying the new mic that I have. It is rocking this conversation so that you can hear everything. We'll be back shortly.
And I shared it. So,
oh, awesome.
I've got a bunch of comments from my page.
I've got.
Oh, you got a ton. Yeah.
Yeah, people are definitely
lit up
about this. Yeah. So, and I'm really enjoying the new mic today. It's like, all right,
is it new?
Brand spanking new. It's only my 3rd time using it. This is my first time of it not having no errors. First time it didn't even act up, or it didn't even plug in. Second time it dropped halfway through. This time I'm monitoring things. But it takes donations of my followers and everybody else to keep upgrading the equipment.
What did that run on the mic?
This is almost 300 for that mic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, compared
but
to...
as many things as you do with that, I mean, as much as...
Yeah.
That's a good purchase.
Compared to my $60 mic that I had before that, this is phenomenal.
Hey, Mike.
Oh yeah, I know. I love hot mics. I keep it running no matter what.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, that's fine. I'm not in a rush. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I know people are. Like we've lost 4 or 5 already.
Yeah, I heard that about Tuesday night. So,
how's it going?
Which is great. I'm on there. How are you doing? How's your yeah. How's that? Yeah.
So they did it like they did it last night.
Sure. Yeah.
Whoa, that's why they want this stupid thing this long.
Right.
So I can get to, like, I can get right here. Labor repair.
Yeah. Yeah, it all.
5 days. I had it done there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I should.
They got you good. They did freeze on you, did they?
Good.
Let's get rid of this. Right. That's good.
Yeah, let me see if Mike. Hey, Mike. This should be an interesting talk.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's going to be a right instruction, but just plan for it.
Right.
Let's go. You absolutely right. Thank you. Come on. Nice to meet you. Oh, okay. Okay. That would be me. So she says I'm Anchorage Valley. Yes.
I would keep your curiosity about
Heck yes. Let me get, where have you, where are you? Okay, where?
Thank you, everybody that's tuning in today. Don't forget to like and share this video. Go to my website, Politadick.com. Hopefully, this was a real interesting conversation listening to Governor Mike Dunleavy and Lieutenant Governor Kevin Meyer breaking down the elections, the possibility of multiple fraud incidents, the 113,000 voters' information that was stolen. Definitely worth sharing. Make sure you like and share this video. Alaskans need to hear what's going on. Thanks again.
Just for what it's worth.
Yeah, I had this one in 2011, so 9 years later.
And off third base and left field.
Exactly. College basketball, high school football, lots of softball. Yeah.
Well, bless your work here today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll
Hey, don't forget out there that they have rallies going on in Anchorage starting at approximately 2 o'clock today and tomorrow at 2 for Trump rallies. Last chance, last time we're going to be holding these rallies. Get out there, go and join Alaskan spirit. Thanks.
Can you say something about that question or no? Am I done?
After he gets done, if you want to.
She can't wait.
This is like one sentence.
She can't wait.
All these people are coming up and talking.
If you want to have everybody can sit down, please. We got 2 more. We got Shelley, Senator Hughes wants to answer a question or 2 that she's gotten, and then we're going to get rid. Okay, we're running about a half an hour late.
I'll be quick.
Okay, a lot of folks are concerned when a judge rules in a way that is very questionable, for instance, legislating from the bench, and whereas Lieutenant Governor said that, the ballot measure 2 violated the single subject rule, but that's what the court said. What do you do? So I'm going to recommend to your group and to Mike that you consider having a speaker come from the Federalist Society, because I heard their presentation, because there is no one branch that is more powerful than another. They're supposed to be equal. They're supposed to have checks and balances. So there is this flawed thinking that once the judiciary branch rules, that's it. And so we're trying, it's almost like we're saying, okay, the judiciary branch is the most powerful. No, they are not. They can be put in check. And one of the ways that they can be put in check, of course, the legislature can go, change the law or whatever, but the executive branch can just refuse to do what the judiciary branch says. That's very rare. It takes a lot of guts for executive branch to do it. But I recommend the Federalist Society. They've done a presentation. I heard one a year or two ago, and it was pretty fascinating as far as how that can be done. But until we have judicial reform in this state, I think we need to think about standing up to the judiciary branch. And it would probably be an excellent presentation. I hope you have it when I can come and I'm not stuck in Juneau. So thank you all.
Thank you, Shelley, and get with me on a point of contact if you know one. Okay, so no further ado, Rick, it's yours.
All right, everybody. Thanks, first of all, for sticking around a little longer. We'll go quick. I want to wrap this meeting up from a presentation standpoint by introducing myself. I'm Rick Whitbeck, former vice chair of the Alaska Republican Party and telecom guy who's turned into an energy advocate over the last couple of years with an organization called Power the Future. I'm the Alaska State Director. We're a national nonprofit who advocates for energy workers across the country, which basically means if you work in a traditional energy environment, a renewable energy environment, if you are being threatened by overreaching eco-extremism, we are there to fight for you. I don't care whether it's oil and gas, wind, solar, electrical generation, but if there's an eco-idiot out there that wants to put you out of work, then I want to fight for you. And our organization's been around for about 3 years. We push back against eco-overreach. We promote facts on energy policy, which basically means we champion energy workers. Why is that important to Alaska? Well, 1/4 of all private sector jobs and every state government job is driven by responsible development in the state. If you work for the state, 65% of your private sector funding for the state comes from the oil and gas community, for example. If you're in private sector, 1/4 of all jobs are directly paid for or indirectly paid for by the oil and gas industry. Another 10 or 15% by mining, other extractive industries. And quite honestly, guys, President Trump's done an amazing job of making us energy independent in a lot of ways, energy dominant, or at least burgeoning energy dominance, and Alaska is a key portion or a key part of that dialogue. As I said, 80% of our state's economy is driven by energy and resource extraction. And this is something that's interesting as I've gone around the last couple of years. Do you know that we have more untapped potential for development in this state than what has been taken out of the ground in the last 50 years? More coming down the road, more possibilities, more minerals, more oil, more gas, more timber than what has been taken out of the land in the last 50 years. Think about that. Now, imagine. I am not saying it's happening. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm not saying that I have given up on 4 more years of President Trump. But I also believe in planning. And Power of the Future has been planning for what our plan of attack would be for over the last year if anybody other than President Trump is in the White House. And let me just say this. The person of the year... Really? The Biden-la person of the year. If they take over Washington, here's what it means for Alaska. Right on his website, joebiden.us, bidenforpresident.com. In their energy policy says, we will, on day 1, shut down ANWR forever. Right there. I can take you to it. It also says on day 1, we will deny any or all future oil and gas development on federal lands or in federal waters. Anybody who is in here knows that 62% of Alaska's land is managed by the federal government, NPRA, ANWR, Cook Inlet. We just saw it with the fisheries, right? They can do oil and gas shutdown right there in Cook Inlet. Those are the caribou who are going to apparently go away according to the Gwich'in. If ANWR's open, I would tell you they are thriving underneath that close sign on Prudhoe. Anybody who's ever been to Prudhoe during caribou season, it's like the mosquitoes, man. They are out there in force. But it stops day one if he follows through on his executive order plans. What else would it mean? The Democratic Party's energy agenda includes reversing all of the progress made under President Trump. American energy independence, going. Why? We'll talk about it in a minute, right? Traditional energy job growth. We're going to shut down fossil fuels. This is them talking. We're going to move to a Green New Deal. We're going to have a quote-unquote, and if I had two working arms, I would use just transition, right? And new project opportunities in Alaska and elsewhere would be denied. Denied by fiat, denied by executive order, denied by illegal EPA vetoes, denied by Department of Interior radical environmental-driven agendas that will put America's and Alaska's energy workers in jeopardy. Oh, and they have this little thing called the Green New Deal. Biden on the campaign trail. Well, I don't support the Green New Deal. But Kamala Harris sure as heck does. She was the first senator after Ed Markey to sign on to the Green New Deal. The first one. She is driven by a radical California agenda. She is backed by radical environmentalists. She was one of the first people. And by the way, she's going to drive that policy because the Sunrise Movement and the Nature Conservancy and the NRDC and everybody who's fought every Alaskan and American project for the last 40 years got Harris elected the first time.
And Biden specifically has already said that if he and Harris ever have disagreements, he's going to back off.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in confrontation.
He literally said he will get a disease and go away.
So, let's talk about the Green New Deal, right? We did a study at Power of the Future about a year ago. And if you guys have heard my presentation before, I've always kind of focused on this. Just the energy policy. So this is using publicly available information. We didn't come up with anything. It's literally just go to the American energy websites, right? Go to the government websites. Go to Chugach Electric's rates at the RCA, things like that, right? MEA's rates at the RCA. What would transitioning under the Green New Deal cost an average Alaskan family in the first year of implementation if the Green New Deal came to pass? Anybody want to guess? If you've seen the presentation, don't give me a number. An average Alaskan household first year implementing the Green New Deal. Just give me a number.
5,000-6,000.
How much?
5,000 or 6,000.
5-6 grand. Higher?
Higher.
Higher. Here we go. By the way, the average Alaskan household makes $82,000 a year across the state.
More than we make.
More than we make. Now, that's just the energy side of the Green New Deal. That doesn't include the social justice side, the free college, the free health care, the jobs for people who don't want to really work, so we'll just give you a stipend, the universal basic income, anything like that. It's just the energy costs. And it's all provable. It's right on our website at powerthefuture.com under projects. The math is there.
So will that increase come as a tax?
How are you going to pay it? It'd be 120% tax on an average Alaskan household.
Is that where the cost will come from, as a tax?
Who knows? They're going to. Well, part of their system is to revolutionize the commerce system with something called MMT, modern monetary theory. Print money, because ultimately America will exist without having to inflationize itself. We can just print money and pay for this crap.
That will be called the Weimar.
100 grand. Oh, by the way, years 2 and 5, only 90% of somebody's income, an average household income. Oh, and you get a break going on year 6 plus. It's only 80% of your household income. Just to pay for the energy side of this. Now do you see why the Green New Deal is a $93 trillion debacle? But what will it do to Alaska's energy community? It'll gut it. So, I'm going to leave you with this. The whole agenda of the Democratic Party is to weaken America. We've done 2 more studies here in the last 4 months. The first one called The Democratic Takeover, How a Blue Wave in November Will Destroy American Energy Independence. Again, I recommend if you want to read the whole thing. It's fascinating reading. It's not bedtime reading. It's, junk reading. And the second one is Made in China. A Biden-Harris energy plan will lead to Chinese dominance or China dominance. Why? Because over 90% of the minerals, critical minerals, rare earths, components for green energy are overseen, run, owned, managed by who? China. Communist China. And well over 90% of all of the solar panels, wind turbines, components, chips for that technology comes from China. Add to that, we've already seen during the virus what happens to supply chain. If you want PPE, most of it is controlled by, at least at the beginning, right? Before American companies stepped up and started making ventilators and started making PPE. It was Chinese controlled. Communist China. I'll keep saying it. You'll keep saying it, I'll start saying it. When we don't control the means of production, and we don't control the goods of production, and we don't control the supply chain from production, we are at risk. So ladies and gentlemen, organizations like Power the Future need to ask you to help, not financially. We're a 501c4. We're an advocacy organization, educational organization, privately funded. I'm not asking for money, but I'm asking you to hit like on Facebook, to follow us on Parler, to follow us on Twitter, to check out the blog posts that we write on a regular basis, to hit the share button on those, to get them out into your social networks, to give me opportunities to speak to your organizations. I've been in Alaska for 35 years. I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows. The next 4 years, are going to be a fight on so many levels. It's a anti-American, anti-God, anti-individual administration that's coming up in the next couple months, if the worst news comes out, right? So there's me, got cards at my chair. What I tell people is, we have a radio program every Tuesday night called the Power of the Future Energy Hour. It's on KVNT. It's reached out here, reached us in Anchorage, all over. Follow us, listen. We have everybody from congressional people to the governor to legislators to heads of energy companies. This week I'll have Rebecca Logan from the Alaska Support Industry Alliance on, and I'm trying to get somebody from Conoco on. It's kind of problematic during Christmas time, but we've had Sullivan and Young and Murkowski and Dunleavy, and I mean, talking about how America's energy workers and Alaska's energy community needs to look forward, how much amazing opportunity we have, and how with these guys, if they get into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, how it's all at risk. So, not to be Debbie Downer, but I also think this is the time where Patriots needs to stand up, know what we're fighting against, and join organizations, whether it's mine or other ones, that can stand up and fight for jobs, for, again, individual opportunity, for collective opportunity, and I'm not talking about from a government handout. And let's make America, keep America, let's make America, in spite of all the crap that's going to go on potentially in the next 4 years, greater than what they want, right? Greater than what they want, because they want us weak. They want us dependent on the government handout. They want America's energy community to be all about Chinese owned, Chinese controlled. Let's not let them. I appreciate the time.
Okay, some positive news. How many here are aware of what happened in the city of Palmer this last couple of weeks? We won!
Yeah.
Sabrina Combs, at the end, she sat there and said, well, I really wanted to vote for this, and I really believe that mask mandate is the way to go, but 68% of the people said no, so I have to go with what the majority says. I'm kind of laying it in a little thick there. She was almost crying when she said it. I went up to her and I thanked her for changing her vote. That didn't go over well. That got a little testy, to say the least. Because she said, well, you don't know me. And I said, yes, I do. Exactly what you said on your Facebook. Write and call in support of this measure. You wanted this to go through. But we stopped you. We stopped you cold. And I thank you for changing your vote and understanding that the majority of the voters said not no, but hell no. And I was nice about it. Oh, if looks could kill. Daggers were flying through me. She was not a happy camper. I also talked to the boy toy that they've got. That's what I call him. He's kind of weird. He's little Dick knows what I'm talking about. He wears this stocking cap, and he's got this mask all the way up to his eyes. I don't even know what the kid looks like. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, you don't listen to very well, do you? Well, I listened to the testimony. I said, your listening comprehension is crap then. So you still voted for this mandate when 68% of the people said not no, but hell no, and they gave good reasons. And he didn't like that. I didn't care. The other two socialists were on Zoom, so I couldn't have a personal word with them. But we won. So all I'm going to say there is when it comes down to Palmer, it ain't over yet. Sabrina is the deputy mayor, and Sabrina is a hardcore socialist. So if you live in the Palmer area or you live outside the Palmer area and you do business in Palmer, more stuff is coming. So be ready for it and be ready to fight. Because when we did the public testimony, we had 60 some odd people standing out in 9-degree weather for up to an hour and a half. You were one of them. And drove from Anchorage to do it. So they knew, and there was only 2 that were for it, and one was Well, kind of, sort of. He was kind of supposedly in neutral. But I know when I testified, every time I used the word socialist, I looked right at her. She didn't like it. So that's the good news from Palmer. What Rick was saying. And this isn't just Alaska. This isn't just an Alaskan fight. We've got 2 senators in Georgia. If we lose those 2, we are SOL, folks. Because then, even when, I'm going to be positive, even when President Trump wins, if we lose the Senate, you know darn well Chucky Boy Schumer, when he says he's going to get rid of the filibuster, when he says that he is going to go for gun control, when he says all these things that he's been saying, believe him. And President Trump will have to veto, and veto. We have the ability to stop any veto override today. So what I've been doing and what I would ask folks to do is I've been watching a lot of OANN. They are doing a really phenomenal job. They've been showing testimony in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, right on down the line. And these things are going for hours. They don't have any commercial breaks or anything. It's just going through. I was watching Wisconsin the other day, and there was 2 representatives. One was just infuriated and frustrated. And what can we do? What are we going to do? And this other representative said, what we're going to do is we're not going to vote and put in any electors coming out of Wisconsin, because the evidence of fraud is too much. It was just phenomenal, the testimony that we've been hearing. So what I did was I called those 2 representatives. I pulled up Wisconsin.gov, I pulled up the representatives, I pulled up their name, and I called them. And I thanked them. And I gave them encouragement. And I answered, there was one question, it was like, well, you know, we don't understand. The state law says that this is what we have to do. And I went, no. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 says you make the decision on who goes. The Constitution overrides your state statute. So, and I've been doing it with Georgia, I've been doing it with Michigan, I've been doing it with Wisconsin, I've been doing it with Nevada, I've done it in Arizona. Yeah. And I say, you know, my name is Mike Coons, and I'm calling from the great free state of Alaska. But this is an election process that impacts every single American, be us in the Samoans, in the territories, to Alaska, to Hawaii, to northern Maine, and Key West of Florida. We're all Americans, and this is impacting every single one of us. So I know it takes time. And I know a lot of folks here still, work and stuff like that. You don't have that time to do it. But if you do have that time to do it, pull up OAN. I will not watch Fox. I'm done. I am so done with Fox in the daytime. I will listen to Tucker Carlson. I will listen to Sean Hannity, although he kind of that New York wine gets me a little bit. I like Laura Ingraham. I love Judge Jeanine. But I said for the rest of them, forget it. They're done. Yeah, Lou Dobbs is excellent. First thing in the morning I turn on is Varney and Company. Because Varney is solid. For the rest of them, once Neil Cavoto comes up, I flip to OANN or Newsmax. Those are the 2 I've been watching. And those are the two that have really been given the best information. And if you watch those, and when you see these representatives from these other states standing up, or the ones that are quivering, call them. It doesn't cost anything. All it does is takes your time. Call them. Let them know that the eyes are on Georgia, that the eyes are on Minnesota, that the eyes are on Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Because if we can get Wisconsin saying no electorates, Pennsylvania may, because Pennsylvania is a Republican-controlled House and Senate. Now the question is Georgia, because Georgia and Arizona has to have their governor call them in for special session, unlike Alaska, where our legislators can call in a special session. So so far I have not wasted my time on calling the governor of Georgia, and I have not wasted my time on calling the governor of Arizona. Both rhinos. It's in my books. But get in there and fight the fight, because this is a battle for our liberty. This is a battle for our freedom. And sadly, and I'm hearing it more and more and more, and I even heard this on Rush Limbaugh the other day, 1863 is coming, folks. Yes, sir.
Since those states in question, the judges of state Supreme Courts of those states in question refused to look at the evidence of fraud to overturn the election, couldn't someone else within those states take the perpetrators of those fraudulent activities to court as a separate thing?
They're trying that already. And although I'll give you this one bit of potential good news, when it comes down to these courts, I'm not making any bets. But Wisconsin's Supreme Court now is hearing it.
Yes.
And Wisconsin's got some really strict laws that they violated in their election process. Yes, sir.
Mike, this was on concerning Treehouse, but it's real short here, but Shelley Hughes addressed it to the state. This is national. An individual citizen is termed not to have standing to challenge an election result if a group of citizens represented by their interest in a state is also denied standing to challenge an election result. Who can constitutionally challenge any election that is mired in controversy and demonstrable evidence of fraud? An individual voter does not have standing to sue for misconduct. She, only one person can't sue for all elections. An official who may be adversely affected cannot sue an election in anticipation of bad conduct because it's speculative, not right. An official who was adversely affected cannot sue after an election claiming bad conduct because it's too late. Elections. A state does not have standing to sue on behalf of its citizens who remedy other states' bad election conduct. No standing. Just found that one out yesterday. The result is that no lawsuit involving the recent election cycle has been heard on the merits, insofar as anybody's aware. The substance of the misconduct claims have not been heard in court. But the point is, the courts have universally denied access to sue on this election, up and down. And that's the real issue is we can't get it into court. You can't sue as an individual. You can't sue before the election because when you see it coming. You can't sue after the election. And the state can't sue. We got a problem, folks.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. I think that's. We just gotta fight, folks. That's all there is to it. We have to fight down to the January 20th. And if, God forbid, Biden and Kamala, and I spell it Camella, Harris, are in our house, that when 2022 rolls around, we need to help every state in the lower 48 take back the House. We have to maintain the Senate now. Because if we do that, we can block Biden. We can block them. His,
not gonna be there.
no, and I think, and Gary's right. I think with my personal opinion, I would not be a bit surprised in the matter of 2 to 3 months, I mean February or March, that Kamala Harris invokes the 25th Amendment.
Well, they've already made that committee.
Yeah, and Nancy did that committee in anticipation of this. So yeah, but we can still win.
Biden actually said it. He literally said if he and Kamala had issues, he's going to be the one to step away.
Yeah, he knows who has got the power.
His party will take him out over the Hunter Biden.
Oh yeah, they're already heading that way. Communist News Network is turning on them. So anyway, January 9th is our next meeting here, same time, same place. Right now, I am working on trying to get some commissioners from the state to come and talk to us about their departments that they oversee as commissioners, kind of like what we were doing before the China virus happened. So that was really neat information. Because what I want to do, my intent on that is for them to talk to us about what their departments are doing, and if there's budget aspects that they need help on, or they can explain why their budget is the way it is and what they're doing and giving a bang for our buck, for our money, for those commissions and those departments. So I think it's really good information. It was valuable information when we had Division of Labor, and I think we had the prison out here, and that was really good information. So we're going to try and continue doing that. I am going to try and get the governor here physically, and God only knows what's going to happen with that. I've been turned down for January already, so I'm working on it. Shelley Hughes, Delana Johnson, David Eastman, right on down the line. We got 20 House members Republican. We've got 19 Democrats with Stutes switching over to them. So it's 20-20. Senate's looking a little bit better because we got some good, strong senators. Shelley, Mike Shower, Laura Reinbold, Kevin McCabe, Holland, Roger Holland. Those guys are really outstanding. And the other ones we can still bring into the fold. The David Nelsons, the Josh Revac. And I told this to Shelley yesterday. I said, because I'm really shooting for Shelley to be the Senate president. That's what I'm really pushing for. That's my personal opinion. But I told her, I said, because she kept on talking about the 5 that are against them, and Josh was one of the 5. I said, my personal opinion is, because I saw the way Josh handled himself around Kathy Giesel in Juneau. Yes, mommy. Waggy tail. I'm gonna just sniffing right up after her. He'll do the same thing with Shelley. He will try his best to be a good little puppy dog. So I'm not too worried about Josh. But the House is a big problem. So we got a lot of stuff coming down. I guess the good news out of the legislature is they're talking maybe having a session under 90 days, and it's going to be just nothing but budget and no bills. That might be interesting for a change. But anyway, so January 9th, 11 o'clock, same place, same station. Come on down. Again, if you haven't put money in the jar, by all means, and make sure that you signed in when you came in. Look for my emails, because I'll have emails out about the future agendas, what we're doing. Have yourself a
ask one
yes, ma'am.
question of the audience. Did anyone vote to retain any judges?
Two
And
judges. I had two.
One of them were retained.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, Gary.
how the-
That guy over there doing one hell of a job. Tuesday night's meeting was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for, Robert, you're doing good, man. He had 80 people on Tuesday in South Anchorage.
They had to put out more chairs.
Can you imagine what the commie mayor would probably have a cow if she knew that there was 80 conservative, mature Alaskans in one of the churches down there against her little edict of no more than 10? And as I told Robert, if the Anchorage Gestapo comes knocking on the door, warrant. Because that's private property.
Yes.
So,
He did
thank
get
you,
a call.
Robert. You're doing a phenomenal job. You're having, what's your average numbers?
60-ish.
60-ish? He's
61
doing
moving forward.
He's doing phenomenal. So support him if you're down in Anchorage, down that way. Merry Christmas. We're going to continue saying Merry Christmas even if Biden gets into the White House. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's.
I did hear yesterday from the restaurant owner that the mayor is trying to make it now in Anchorage to go till March.
Before I tune out here, we've got the rally that is going on today in Anchorage that is starting at 2 o'clock. And it is today and tomorrow at 2 o'clock. This is the rally for Trump. This will be the last chance for everybody to participate in that. And I've got an announcement for the 19th. I am going to show that off here. Use my other phone to make sure you get a good view of it here. This is on the 19th. This is a roll-in rally. Don't forget to go to my website, Politadick.com, and click that donate button. Everything you contribute helps us continue to keep growing and expanding. We really do appreciate everybody that has stayed tuned in all day today. It has been a phenomenal crowd. We got to hear a lot about the election integrity from Lieutenant Governor Kevin Myers. We got to hear some stuff from our Governor Mike Dunleavy about the virus, very little about the elections, and what we are going to be facing and looking at in the future. It was a great presentation there at the end for the future of Alaska with energy and what we will be looking like if we have a Biden-Harris administration. And Mike Coons at the very end of this nailed it when he gave his presentation on what we are to expect if Biden-Harris, the dark force, gets actually into office, and what the future of Alaska will look like, and them closing us down. Don't forget to like and share this video. Everybody in Alaska needs to be able to hear what our Lieutenant Governor, our Governor, and everybody else that was here today had to say. Thank you for the special guest Senator Shelley Hughes for showing up and giving some well thought out remarks, and most appreciated. Again, go to my website, Politadick.com, click that donate button. Everything like I've told you before, I'll keep telling you again, goes right back into making sure that we improve our production and our output and our reach to all of you. Thanks to your donations, the microphone that we used today was because of that, and I think it rocked this one today. It made sure that no matter where people were in the room, you could hear them as crystal clear as if you were standing there yourself. Again, thank you very much for being here today, and share!